Welcome to today's Comparing Solar Quotes webinar. My name is Abby. I'm a program manager at Solar Oregon. Today we're going to be going through some factors to consider if you are looking at a few different quotes for a solar system. So on the agenda for the meeting today, first we're going to be going through the different components that exist within a solar system before moving on to the different elements that would be within a quote. We'll then talk about the other criteria you might want to consider past just the elements of a quote. And finally, we'll go through some example quotes and how to find a contractor. Now, really quickly, a little bit about Solar Oregon. Solar Oregon is a 501c3 organization that focuses on education, outreach, and community advocacy around solar power. We do a variety of different in-person and virtual events that all center around solar power, including solar tours, how to go solar and storage presentations, showcase events, and other educational events such as this webinar here today. We are a member-based organization. You can donate and become a member today at bit.ly/donate2so or by scanning the QR code. You can also follow us on social media and Eventbrite at Solar Oregon to find out what we are up to. This presentation is made possible by support from the Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit that provides access to affordable energy. They serve 1.6 million customers at Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural Gas, Cascade Natural Gas, and Avista. Thank you, Energy Trust of Oregon, for your support. Energy Trust of Oregon uses also promotes the tool, their solar bid tool. This is a great tool to use if you have not yet received any quotes for your solar system. The solar bid tool allows you to receive bids from multiple contractors that are all pre-vetted by Energy Trust of Oregon and have received the Trade Ally certification. The tool is easy to use and easy to find online if you just search for the Energy Trust of Oregon solar bid tool. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to stick it in the chat or the Q&A. I will be going through those at the end of the presentation. There's no need to wait until the end of the presentation to put your questions in there. Feel free to drop them in at any time. Really quickly, before we move forward, I'm just going to launch an optional poll. If everyone could please fill it out, that would be very much appreciated, just so we can know who's in the Zoom room today. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, without further ado, on to the presentation. So as I said, first up here is a basic diagram of a solar system. On the top left, we have the photovoltaic or PV panel, which generates a volt of electricity when sunlight hits it. From there, that volt electricity goes down to a special device called an inverter or microinverter, which converts it from the DC electricity that is generated by the solar panel to usable AC electricity by your home. From there, it will flow to your home's electrical panel to power all the things you need electricity for, from the lights and dishwasher to even charging your electric vehicle. If at any point in time your PV panel is generating more power than you are using at that moment in time, any excess power will flow out through your utility meter. When you get a solar system, if you have a grid-tied system, you will also get a new utility meter that is a bi-directional meter. This allows you electricity to flow in both directions, so you can export power to the grid when you are generating more electricity than you need, and you can also pull power from the grid at night or other times when your PV panels may not be generating quite as much electricity. So that's it. Those are all the base system components you need for a solar system. It's pretty simple, and that's one of the reasons that price can vary a lot as people's preferences and how the system is configured is very modular. So how does solar help you save money? The process we have here in Oregon is called net metering. Net metering allows you to earn credits for the power you export to the grid. I'm going to walk through two examples and then walk through this example bill on the right. So first, in the top left bar graph, you can see an example of a typical sunny summer month. This is when your solar production is going to be at its height. Your making a ton of solar power and you're making way more than the amount you need to consume to power everything within your home, which is that blue bar on the right. So you're earning credit for all that excess power you are exporting to the grid. Now, 6 months from now, it's going to be cold. Your solar panels would still be generating some power, but it's not going to be generating anything like it was during the summer. So that's that orange bar on the left, which now you can see does not quite meet the expected consumption you have for your grid, or for your home. That means you're going to have to draw power from the grid. Luckily, all those net metering credits you earned during the summer will help cover your power bill during the winter. So moving over to this example energy bill, we can see that in this example, the calculated kilowatt hours needed for this customer is negative 327 kilowatt hours, meaning they exported 327 kilowatt hours of power to the grid, and their billable kilowatt hours are 0. Net metering credits roll over from month to month, but do not roll over from year to year. That is because so that means it's very important to size your system correctly in order to ensure that you are meeting and not exceeding your expected usage. Sorry, I have to stay hydrated while I'm giving this presentation. So this customer would not have any billable kilowatt hours, as I said, and instead their final bill would probably be between $12 and $18, depending on the taxes and fees they pay for just being connected to the grid in the first place. So, as I said, because net metering credits roll over from month to month, but not year to year, it's very important to size your system correctly. Your solar system should be sized based on how much electricity you consume. PG&E or PAC Power will not cut you a check for their excess generated power at the end of the net metering year, which begins and ends on March 31st and April 1st. Instead, you will forfeit any excess credits you have. So you want to size your system as close as possible to your expected need. Other factors that can impact the size of your system can be your location and how shaded maybe one side of your home is, your roof condition, available space, your budget, and aesthetics. The average size for a solar system here in Oregon is about 8 kilowatts, and the average size for a storage system is about 13 kilowatt hours. Now, there's lots of reasons costs can vary, as solar is a highly modular system. Some of those can be system size and components you're using, whether or not you need to have structural analysis or any upgrades take place in order for your roof to support solar panels, any electrical upgrades such as updating your breaker panel, your system design, and how many incentives you can access. I am going to be talking about incentives a little bit later in the presentation, just FYI. Now, in addition to reasons your cost can vary, there's many different ways your system production can vary. So if you're comparing two different solar quotes, one question can be, how many watts is in your system? Is there a difference in the number of watts a solar contractor believes you will need? You can calculate your cost per watt by dividing total cost by total price. You can also look at the production estimate. So is it meeting your expected yearly usage if you look at that production estimate? And you can also see if there's any other charges on your quote. Now that we're talking about quote, we're going to go through the different elements that make up a solar quote. What's included in your system price? Your system price will include the equipment, so all panels, inverters, production monitoring systems, racking, etc. Any installation, warranties, and maintenance. But there might be some add-ons, such as additional warranties or extra maintenance that your contractor may suggest but could cost more. The equipment you get within your system includes the PV panels, and an energy storage system if you are getting a battery, a racking system, so that is how the solar panels are attached to the roof or the ground. And if you have a string inverter, you usually also end up with some DC optimizers that just help make your panels a little bit more efficient. Either way, you will also have an inverter, either a string or microinverter. Microinverters are pictured here on the right. Those are those little black boxes on the back of your solar panel. Both string and microinverters are great options. It really just depends on the needs of your system. You might need to upgrade your electric panel, as I mentioned, just to make sure it can support your solar system. And there will be some sort of production monitoring in order to make sure your system is producing the amount of power it should. There can also be additional items like a critter guard that are either added on or included depending on the quote you received. So it's very important to consider what technology is in your system when looking at all these different components. So that can include what brands are being used and is there consistency about brands. We definitely recommend asking your contractor why they selected different brands. I know a lot of contractors specialize in only one brand, as they've seen that that brand is the least likely to fail in their experience. You can also ask about what type of inverter they've selected for you, whether a string or microinverter, and if there are any DC optimizers, and what the warranties are. So now more about warranties. It's very important to consider the length of coverage for your warranty and also what is included. Typically, you will have both. You will have at least two different warranties on your system, as you'll have the manufacturer warranty that covers the parts and the contractor warranty, which covers the installation. So that means, though, that if a part fails, it might not necessarily be covered under the contractor warranty. So those are some really great questions to ask of your warranty with the solar contractor you're considering working with. If you are eligible for Solar Within Reach, the Solar Within Reach program has a 7-year full system workmanship warranty for eligible projects, just to keep in mind. There can also be a difference in logistics between different quotes. So this could be the installation warranty. So how long does the installation warranty last? What the payment structure looks like, and what their predicted timeline is to get your solar system on your roof and giving you some great power from the sun. With these solar systems, financing is very common. Some solar contractors might have a financing partner that they work with. However, we definitely recommend that you reach out and consider all your financing options. So reach out to your local bank and credit union in order to see what options they have for solar financing as well. One option is a loan. If you're considering a loan, it's very important to consider what the interest rate is. Are there dealer fees, any early payoff penalties, if it's a fixed or variable loan? How many times can you rematurize the loan, and who services the loan? Another option is solar lease, where a company will essentially lease your roof out from you to put solar panels on it, and then you pay for the power from them instead of from your power company. In that case, you want to consider if there's an annual escalator. Does it put a loan on your home? You don't own the system, which could also cause some issues if you're looking to sell your home later down the road. The power purchasing agreement is leasing out the production of the system instead of the equipment. Oops, sorry, I must have mixed that up earlier. Leases, you're leasing the equipment, not the power, versus power purchasing, you're leasing the production, not the equipment. So just another thing to consider. And you want to be sure that you are protecting yourself and making sound financial decisions. So definitely consult a financial professional and make sure you feel educated about the decisions you are making. Do not feel like you need to rush into any sort of loan. You can always sit and mull it over and consult more resources. Now, in addition to financing, there's also the incentives that can help make solar systems a little bit more affordable. The biggest incentive is the Federal Solar Investment Tax Credit, or ITC. This is a 30% dollar-for-dollar tax credit that covers your solar system installation. You would apply for this as the customer and receive it back on your taxes the following year. Ultimately, you are responsible for ensuring that you apply for the Federal Solar Investment Tax Credit correctly. So if you have any questions, be sure to consult a tax professional, and I am not one. So reach out to your tax professional if that is something you have questions about. In addition to that, there are 2 Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. First is the Energy Trust of Oregon Solar Incentive, which is $1,000 for PGE or $1,200 for Pacific Power for solar installations. And then they also have their standard storage incentive, which is $500 per kilowatt hour, up to $6,000 for PGE and Pacific Power for storage. And in order to access Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, the only thing you as a customer need to do is work with an Energy Trust of Oregon Trade Ally contractor, which is that vetting system I mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation. And I'll be talking more about that again at the end. From there, your trade ally contractor will do all the application works for you, and you don't have to do anything extra in order to access those funds. In addition to those standard incentives, there's also Solar Within Reach, which is additional incentives for income qualified households. The income threshold cutoff for that is very generous at $120,000 for a family of 4. So be sure to check that out if you think you might be eligible. Now that we've gone through some of the more concrete things, so incentives and financing and the equipment within your system, there's some other criteria you should probably consider when looking at different solar contractors. The first are credentials. What credentials does the solar contractor have that make them qualified to install your solar system? Are they a trade ally? This would be another credential. And as I said, you have to work with a trade ally in order to access those Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. You can also look and see if there's any beliefs and values-centered certifications that you would want. An example of this would be a B Corp certification, or a 1% for the planet. In addition to credentials, you can also look at reviews. It's definitely a good idea to ask your solar contractor for any testimonials or references of their past customers so that you can be sure that they have some happy customers that they've done good work for before. You can also consult online reviews through Google or other online review sites. Then there's the kind of softer side of things, such as company culture, company size and structure, and years and apologies, hiccups now. The softer stuff of company culture, company size, structure, and years in business. These are all things that are a little bit less concrete than things like what technology is in your system, but you might have certain things you want. So some people prefer the very large solar contractors that work nationwide, while some prefer the more local businesses centered here in Portland or otherwise in Oregon. This really just comes down to your personal preference, as there can be pros and cons to both. So now with all that, I'm going to walk through some example solar quotes. So first we have the basic information system overview. This is where you can find the size of your solar system, what your expected system production is, the equipment that's included within the storage system, and how much consumption your household has versus your estimated production and estimated savings from that production. Next, there's the cost. So this was an 8 kilowatt store system with a system production of 10,239 kilowatt hours. That system price totals out to $32,000. And there may be local incentives that can be accessed, tax incentives, and possibly even some additional discounts. The quote will then go over the financing options, the loan amount, the loan payment per month, and your net system price overall. So here's the example quote with the numbers. So we can see the system size, 8.36 kilowatts, and the estimated yearly production at just over 15,000 kilowatt hours. That means for this customer that their solar system would offset all their expected usage for the year, and they do that using using different panels and an N-phase, self-fab panels, N-phase monitoring, and an N-phase inverter. And you can see on the bar graph here how the solar consumption and production impacts the expected consumption you have as a customer on the bottom right. So now we get into the money side of it. So the monthly loan payment would be $129. And if the federal tax incentive of 30% is not paid towards the loan, that jumps up to $186. It also, with interest, the total system price becomes $42,818. And there are, and with the ITC and local tax incentives, you deduct $12,845, bringing the net system cost down to $29,973. It also then lists a variety of different financing options over on the right, and the 25-year average cost per kilowatt hour. And what's really interesting in that is you can see that the utility power even with these really large numbers of $29,000, is still much higher than either solar option. The utility power is 23 cents per kilowatt hour, while solar option 1 is 10 cents and solar option 2 is 9 cents. And those options just refer to different monthly payment amounts and different loan amounts. So now that you've gone through all that, if you don't have quotes in front of you already, how can you find a contractor? So as I mentioned at the beginning, I highly recommend working with an Energy Trust of Oregon trade ally contractor. They are rigorously qualified. They're approved to offer Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, meaning they know all the requirements in order for your system to be approved by Energy Trust. And they are the ones that will apply for the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives on your behalf, just saving you money. And why not work with a vetted contractor? You can request a quote by going to the Energy Trust of Oregon Solar Bid Tool, which I'm going to drop a link to in the chat right now. This is how you can put in your information and request a quote very easily. You'll be connected with up to 3 contractors that work in your area in order to see what they recommend for a solar system, and you can get started on your journey comparing different solar quotes and hopefully eventually signing with one of them in order to get your very own solar system. Once you select a contractor and sign all the paperwork, installation is very quick, except for permitting. Permitting can vary wildly in how long it takes, and on average, we're seeing between 2 and 12 months, with it being high on the higher end in metro areas such as Portland. But in other areas like Gresham, it is down much closer to that 2-month mark. Once you have all the permits, installation is very quick at usually only 1 to 4 days, and your contractor will manage all inspections and interconnections. And that's it. It's all very simple. Please, if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer them. Feel free to just stick them in that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And there's the image that you're looking for. If there are no questions, thank you so much for coming. If you think of any questions later, feel free to send us an email at info@solaroregon.org. More than happy to answer anything there. And this presentation will be recorded and has been recorded and will be up on our YouTube channel in the coming days. So feel free to keep an eye out there for that. But have a great evening and thank you so much for coming.